Hello, beautiful viewers. On this week's Men in Blazers, we react immediately to the Champions League final. Manchester City's night of destiny against a very courageous Inter Milan in Istanbul. A treble won, perhaps with an asterisk. All that and more coming on today's Men in Blazers. Please, please, please remember to like this video and subscribe. Helps us grow and produce more of this crap. Crap like this. Cue the violins. It's Rog with an instant reaction to the 2023 Champions League final. What did we just witness? A sweaty, brutal, ultimately glorious night for Manchester City, who had to work so hard, so much harder than they might ever have imagined, against vast underdog Inter Milan, who played so bravely, the best game they could have, and City were, well, a season of transcendent glory. Let's just say it must take a toll. But they were victorious tonight nonetheless. A 1-0 grueling, grinding win that went down to the last. Was not exactly a classic for long stretches. The goal, though, the winner, a net-bulging exclamation point from Rodri. That's what will be remembered. As well as some Romelu Lukaku. Oh, just a miss of darkness. As well as the magnificent culmination of Pep Guardiola's mad experiment, which has ended in a treble. A remarkable, truly remarkable feat. A complex one. A nuanced one which will be under the microscope in so many ways, as we will discuss. Still never won the Florida Cup, though, lads. I want to start, though, by raising my third first Bud Light of the day to Jack Grealish. The end of a glorious season for a gent who really went into the crucible last season. A truly, traumatic season, even in victory, and has emerged with a treble. And on British television, you've got to find this clip. I think it's all over our social. In the wake of victory, was in tears, talking about the joy he felt this evening, even though, and this is a quote, I played crap, and then added, and I had a crap season last year. As you say, to winning and doing it honestly in your own style in every way. Jack Grealish, never change, you crazy diamond. And we came to the football to pay witness to one man, though, tonight. Pep Guardiola facing up to his obsession, that Champions League trophy. And, I've come to realise, Pep, start to think about it, was really just J.K. Simmons in Whiplash. And Phil Foden is his Miles Teller, a genius who still gets a slap when he fails to keep tempo in pursuit of perfection. And this Champions League win tonight, to win without Barcelona, to win without Messi, into Miami's Messi. That was the goal that he's pursued with an obsession bordering on, at times, self-destruction. The kind of self-destruction known only to Herman Melville, Moby Dick, towards the I Roll Champions League trophy. Though all destroying but unconquering wail, to the last I grapple with thee. From hell's heart I stab at thee. For hate's sake I spit my last breath at thee. And it was only Inter Milan, really a team who were a surprise even to themselves, that stood between Pep and that wail. Inter Milan, a canny, experienced professional team. A team whose brand, when we think about Inter Milan, are really, we think of them as one of the grand dams of Europe, but they are so far away from the Inter Milan of our imagination in reality. The Inter Milan of Ronaldo, of Roberto Baggio, of Jurgen Klinsmann, so far now from super club status. Yet here they were, with the likes of Darmian and Gosen, a team so diminished that they even lost their shirt sponsor mid-season. Their original sponsor, a cryptocurrency site, Digital Bits, failed to pay their installments to the club. What a surprise. And so Inter Milan took the field tonight with Paramount Plus, the American broadcaster Paramount Plus, on their jersey. Got to say, in one way, a truly lovely, wonderful symbol of America's investment in the global game, but also a symbol of a team on faltering economic ground who were meant to turn up tonight and be mere patsies. Rarely, let's be candid, before kickoff, has this Champions League felt like such a mismatch. Less really a competition, more a coronation for the new kings of Europe. EMC Tear tweeted, I give Manchester City an 80% chance of victory before the game, Inter a 19% chance, and Real Madrid a 1% chance, because you can never rule Real Madrid out. And from a City perspective, such were the stakes, such was the moment, that even their owner, Sheikh Mansour, was in the crowd, a gent who spent a reported $2 billion, that we know of, through his investment vehicle, the Abu Dhabi United Group, since buying Manchester City back in 2008 for $251 million. He's come to exactly one City game in person before. Back in 2010, he saw his team defeat Liverpool 3-0. Even missed the 2021 Champions League final at City lost to Chelsea that night in Porto. But tonight, even he was there to pay witness in person in Turkey for the game that his club were prohibitive favourites to win. And such was the symbolic global message that could be delivered by the prospect of this, the treble. Against a background maybe of Saudi Arabia trying to buy everything up in football, there was an optics message that needed to be made tonight by Abu Dhabi. He was joined by City chairman Khaldoon Al-Mubarak there in Istanbul at the Ataturk Olympic Stadium. Just think for one moment, when I saw him, and you remember that youthful face in 2010, then seeing him tonight, how different the world of football is since tonight and back from 2010 when he last attended a game. How different the world is, period. But we didn't have time to reflect too deeply on that issue because we did have a game to play. And Miguel Delaney wrote before kickoff, really summing up the mood in Istanbul. He wrote, it's difficult to remember when there was so little sense of contest, if not occasion. But the game itself still had to be played. And that is the wonder of football. Less wonderful about football, all the UEFA shtick, which came beforehand, the pre-game, I don't know what it was. Football is the most attractive thing in the world. It's a thing that draws the most eyeballs. Who decides we need that, take that thing and add music beforehand, such as a pianist on the field playing the Champions League anthem as the players walked out, which was meant to be the classiest of moves, but really gave the Champions League final for a moment all the grandeur of mid-afternoon at the Boca Raton Firm Bar. And the news for City with the starting lines up was Kyle Walker, despite declaring himself and his back to be fit, didn't start. And Pep actually said it was tactical, inserting Nathan Ake instead of him. And from the off, City tried to whirl into the moment, pressing high, so high, looking to slip in Haaland. I was almost relieved. I was so terrified of just the obliteration that I was sure was to come. That when the clock, I don't know about you, but when the clock ticked past 13 seconds and it was still 0-0, I was like, oh my God, Inter. Thank you, God. Inter did better than Manchester United. And then, Inter, God bless them, from the beginning, did not seem afraid. In fact, they were doing something that was crazy but courageous, playing a fascinating game of chicken, a game of tactical chicken, if you will, because whenever John Stones made his move from the back line into the midfield, we've seen that so much in the second half of the Premier League season. That, we know, is City's big baller death move. When John Stones thunders into the midfield, it's game over. It's lights out. It's backbreakers. But whenever he threatened to step up, Inter did something fascinating. They were playing with two strikers up front. And the second John Stones tried to step up, they pressed like madmen. And it created a certain moment of, I wouldn't say fear for City, because that's a slight exaggeration. And I don't do exaggeration, not much. Really, it was like a self-awareness for Manchester City. Not vulnerability exactly, but awareness. A gesture towards pretending they were human. Because remember, Manchester City had played against Premier League teams that had played that now rare two-striker formation. They played exactly twice this season. And they'd lost twice, both to Brentford. So credit Inter. The bookmakers had them as the rankest of rank outsiders. I saw 10-3 odds for them before the game. City were at 2-9 to win, but Inter were not phased at all. This was a professional side. This was an experienced side. This was a side both with a plan, But watching them in that first half, I realised when you're already considered dead by the rest of the world, you got nothing less to lose. Apart from saying not today to death and audaciously, courageously giving it your all. And I've got to say, the big point tonight, Inter Milan tonight was so bloody brave, so incredibly courageous, and I ate for them because this was frenzied fare. That first half, there was a moment when City stepped up, KDB slipped in Haaland. He couldn't quite get his feet set, he wobbled, and as he pulled his foot back to shoot still, I don't know about you, I genuinely quaked with fear. He slapped the ball at Onana, who just gratefully grabbed it up. And then a moment of fear for City. KDB fell awkwardly. Çalhanoğlu had gone in hard. Never really after that tackle. KDB never regained his mobility, never seemed comfortable. And as he raised his hand and just with one finger said, no, I can't continue into that Istanbul night, I felt a true human sadness. This was 2 years after KDB had limped off after being flattened by Rudiger against Chelsea when he couldn't continue there just after the hour. And this was an agony. Off again, 36 minute this time, stepping off and able to help his team in the biggest moment. A moment, frankly, a player like him who has given all that he has truly deserves. He had to watch on in agony from that point. On came Pep's son, Phil Foden, the creature that Pep had carved out of wood, I believe, late at night in his laboratory. It's another story incredible to witness in his own right. A boyhood City fan, a local child of Manchester coming on for the club in a Champions League final in a moment of need. But the game itself, if we're being honest, stripped of context, was not great to watch from a pure footballing perspective. But the spectacle, the occasion, that's what made it fascinating. Pep barking at his players on the sideline, relax. And I don't know about you, but when my wife tells me to chillax or whatever she says, it never really helps. It always makes me feel calm down. It's always the worst thing you can ever shout at someone who's totally fuming. Relax, he was saying, as Inter emboldened, pushed forwards. They didn't so much as create their chances, but they had initiative at times for long spells without being able at the killer second to summon that final pass. City attempted to counter themselves, but the frustration was real. It was evident, and the first half ended with Akanji blasting a left foot long range shot high and wide. Oh, Inter would have loved that. Is that all you've got? Really a symbol of the most un-City-like lack of control, which had been utterly unable to take a grip on. And you think, how many times down this second half of the season, City were just not used to being treated like this, to feeling like this, to being unable to force their will on their opponent. Incredible nugget from Miguel Delaney. This was only the 5th time since that defeat to Spurs in February. It feels like years ago now. Their last truly competitive defeat, the Brentford loss, obviously came after the title had already been wrapped up, doesn't really count. But it was only the 5th time that City had not scored in the first half. And I did think, Lord knows what the scene was like in that City locker room at halftime. Pep just with the magic marker out, just scribbling away in kind of beautiful mind overdrive, tactic upon tactic, 4th dimension, 5th dimension. Poor KDB just in the corner in his tracksuit, sobbing forlornly, heartbroken. Kyle Walker, no doubt, just calmly in his own world, checking Tinder. But those poor players, you think about it, so many games this season, a World Cup jammed in there in the middle. These dudes' muscles must have been begging for mercy at this point in both locker rooms. And coming out for that second half, my feeling was, how long could Inter maintain this intensity? And also the longer this game went on, to me, it felt inevitable that Pep, with all of those options, we've talked about him like as if he's the God King Xerxes in 300, just unleashing wave after wave. Mahrez, you're next. War Elephants, you're next. That guy in 300. But it felt inevitable to me that Pep would tactically adjust and find a way. But also in this final step, after faltering, after wanting this so badly, and I've interviewed Pep, the first time I interviewed him, in this first year at City, he kept screaming at me, this club has no history. This club has no history, as if history and legacy itself can lead you to win this Champions League that he clearly craved from the very beginning. And when you have that mentality of dreaming and wanting and longing and faltering again and again and again, you did wonder for Manchester City could second guessing kick in. And that's what made this second half such a knife fight. You really felt the strain and the fatigue on Inter Milan as John Stones started to step up with more ease and influence into City's midfield. You felt Inter, you saw that they started to seize every moment to eat the clock. The injuries began to be faked. The dives at every opportunity started to fly in. By the way, Bastoni, magnificent at the back when called upon. And you always felt, I think I tweeted this, Inter would have their one big chance. The question was, would they take it? By the way, the fans baying them on the whole time. Inter fans tonight, when you rewatch that game, listen to the Inter fans throughout. Utterly, utterly tremendous. Thank you for watching our crap show. We appreciate it more than I can say. Please take a minute, drop a like on this video if you're enjoying it. But without further ado, here's a lot more Pep. And then Big Rom came on just before the hour. Cue, no doubt, scenes in Megan Thee Stallion's house. Now, former Everton players now on for both teams playing with fire. And then the moment. 68th minute. Inter Milan's resistance broke. An overload on the right. Jose Mourinho often talks about how you can smell a goal just before it happens. You smelt this goal. Bernardo Silva herring into space. His cross deflected. But the danger was not gone. In fact, the danger was ratcheted up because it fell to Rodri, a charging Rodri, sitting up exquisitely. He needed no further invitation. He thrashed that ball home. Look at the net as he hits it. That net billows for an age as he reeled away. Relief, a player who knows that he had just broken a dam. Just a stunning moment. Charged away to the sideline. Greals on his back. The two of them screaming. And you felt that moment, Rodri, that goal, that moment would be known in City lore in the same way as Aguero. And then Company before him, just a gent who, in an hour of need for the club, delivered a massive, thumping, crucial goal when his team needed one. And poor Inter. They tried so hard to muster a response. I've got to say, I have seen City a lot this season. Most teams would wilt. It's the moment where they've got to commit now, Trevor. Got to commit players forward. City are going to eat them up on the cat. It should have been Haaland time, right? Off the back in all that space. But Inter were so defiant, so stubborn. I don't know where they got their energy tonight, but my Lord, they forced themselves forward again and again. It has to be said, their crossing was astonishingly woeful. There was 1 second of true mad panic. DiMarco heading a looping ball off the crossbar, Ederson flailing backwards. And then a second header, a follow-up from DiMarco, headed towards goal until Romelu Lukaku got in the way. I screamed at my television, no, Lord, not Rom. Why always Big Rom? You knew cue all the lols of this being his most important career moment for a Premier League team, blocking the ball going in for his own squad. And, in that moment, I looked at him, the agony. We did not know what was to come still. Well, we kind of did, didn't we? Because you can take the boy out of Everton, but you can never take the Everton out of the boy. All the while, Pep just losing his crap on the sidelines. Tonight, that man lived 1,000 deaths. Dude was in puddles. Big Rom, though, that was just the hors d'oeuvres. He had more pain, more trauma. Free header from close range. Flicked it downwards. Credit him. It's what you need to do, but it was still so central. He hit it essentially right at Ederson. And more agony for that human being in a season filled with self-sabotage for a man. He's come on this show. We've talked about it. How sensitive he is, how he feels things. I feel so terrible for Romelu Lukaku. Why always him? And not in a good way. This is a sensitive man. a man who scored buckets of goals, but suffers seemingly just an endless torment, an endless agony, kind depicted only in the book of Job. And even Thierry Henry, his great friend, even Thierry Henry, who was an assistant coach of Belgium, Thierry Henry, the man who hugged him in that dark, dark game, the World Cup loss, in which he missed chance after chance after chance, sobbing at the end of the game. It was Thierry Henry that consoled him. Even Thierry Henry tonight on television said, yeah, he's going to have to live with this. He's going to have to live with this miss for the rest of his life and everything that comes with it. There's more. Edison had to keep out a flashing header from a corner at the last. By the way, an incredible save at the death, at the whistle that will be forgotten because the whistle blew immediately. And what was fascinating about this moment, normally when you win a Champions League, normally when you win a game, a massive game like that, what we're used to, the tropes, the players running around in wonder, just hugging each other, the disbelief, the manager going berserk on the side. And we just saw David Moyes win the Europa Conference League. Picture that, just the charge down the line, the wonder, the salutation, just the losing yourself to the moment. This was not it. This was not it. The players just fell to the grass. Both of them. The Inter players, obviously, the defeat, the pain, the agony. The Manchester City players, too, were to a person. Every single one, the camera tries to pick out joy. The camera in that moment wants to show us the elation of victory. Instead, we saw player after player topple to the turf, both physically shattered, no doubt, and emotionally shattered. Burying their face in the turf, probably a moment of prayer, a moment of relief. I mean, I can't project. I'm not a winner. I do not know. But it was a remarkable moment. It wasn't a player winning a trophy. It was more like human beings finishing a ultra marathon of stress and just the exhaustion of retained focus. Year after year for many of these City players in which they knew their team had been arguably, not really arguably, you can make this case, Manchester City have been for a long time the best team in Europe in years past, but they just self-sabotaged their way out of the tournament on repeat. Having said that, ultimate victory is always felt inevitable. And being led by an unrelenting madman, I guess that helps. And that was it. A glorious moment for City. A weird moment for sure. I mean, look, a treble needs to be said. To be clear, it's an immense achievement. It really is, of collective omnipotence, of tactical transcendence and obsessive focus. It's a long, bloody season. This season has been so unbelievably long. 307 days this season is from the beginning, the first kickoff, I think it was August the 7th, to now. And for Manchester City, when you speak to the players, they will admit the greatest opponent is always complacency, over and over again. At the same time, 115 Premier League charges lie ahead. And so that clash, that juxtaposition of just sublime omnipotence and just that the cognitive dissonance between the two in that moment, it all made it feel a bit like watching Emperor Palpatine in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, just shocking the Jedi, seizing control of the galaxy. That's what it felt like. Also tinged with a bit at the end of The Usual Suspects, where Kaiser Sose walks out that police station, spoiler alert, he's a free man, he corrects that limp, and just escapes with no one suspecting him. And I ache for Inter. I do. I've said that, made that clear. They were immense tonight. That was a bravo performance. No one gave them a chance. And ultimately, they created so many. They made City in moments feel mortal. They're not, but they made them feel mortal. The expected goals tells a story of just how grinding a win this was for Manchester City tonight. Manchester City's expected goals was 0.95. Inter Milan's expected goals, Romelu Lukaku, look away now, was 2.07. And yet the final score was 1-0 City. And now Inter have to return to earth as what they are as a team, a club struggling financially in dire ways, far, far from what we think of Inter Milan at their pomp. But tonight was about City. Champions League was the point of the project from the very beginning when Abu Dhabi took over in 2008 to have a club that were champions of Europe, essentially the champion of the world. Guardiola can now say, as he's hinted all week, that this was his true masterpiece. This treble, which is really a peculiar English obsession, partially because Manchester United's 1999 squad is the only other English team to have won all 3 major trophies in the same season. So it's seen as the gold standard within England, and crosstown rivals Manchester City, for so long the little brother, to be honest, the pathetic little brother, for so long the Roger Clinton of Manchester, for them to project the true mantle of greatness, they had to complete that treble, to match it, to smite all comers amidst all the noise. And there's been so much with the Premier League charges hanging almost like the sword of Damocles, casting an asterisk-shaped shadow over all of it. And there's much more to come in regards to that, which may take years, that shadow, this sense of questioning, sense of that there's more below the waterline than we can ever imagine. That is still to come. But today was superlatively historic. And for today, Pep Guardiola has won the treble for the second time in his career, become the only manager ever to do that with 2 different clubs. Did it with Barcelona, finishing in 2009, tonight with Manchester City. For him, that is greatness. By the way, talking about greatness, even amidst greatness, there's wonderful footnotes and a lovely, tiny but impressive note. Scott Carson, Manchester City's third choice goalkeeper, 37 years of age, on the bench tonight, won a Champions League medal just for doing that. It was actually his second Champions League medal. He won his first as an unused Liverpool substitute behind Jerzy Dudek. Also in that same stadium in Istanbul 18 years ago. Just amazing, the symmetry, the poetry, that achievement. 2 Champions League medals for Scott Carson. A man played as many minutes as you and me. But what now for Pep Guardiola? A 3rd Champions League win for him in a 14-year spell. I actually asked my oldest son, Samson, before kickoff who he was supporting, and he said Manchester City. I was like, why? Why would you do that? He said, I'm playing the long ball game. I'd like Pep to feel like he's done it all, that there's nothing more to achieve, and he'll quit and leave the Premier League behind. But there's also, tonight, there was the old baton that Pep was beaten with, that Pep was never good enough to win the Champions League without Messi. It was all Messi. Inter Miami's Messi. It was never Pep Guardiola. That argument is done. No one will call that man Fraudiola anymore. Bon and Rene had an incredible statistic that Guardiola has now accounted for over 45% of all major trophies won in Manchester City's 143-year history. How will history judge it? To be clear, that remains to be seen. From a footballing perspective alone, from an on-field perspective alone, this was an immense achievement this season. And tonight, a season of football. If you watched it week in, week out, you know this. This was football played in a different dimension to the rest. Bayern Munich destroyed, Real Madrid wrecked along the way, like great cities sacked by Pep's all-slaying empire builders. Yet at the same time, it remains to be seen how those 115 Premier League charges play out. And beyond that, what we're even looking at. Bonnie Renee again asked, are we watching essentially a very well-run propaganda glove puppet for a repressive nation state? One that state was willing to bankroll infinitely to create. That's the rationale. What Arsene Wenger, I think it was him, once called the triumph of petrol and ideas, which sounds like a terrible 1980s album. But the emotional, with football, we've talked about this a lot. Ultimately, the emotional always wins in football. That's what happened at the Qatar World Cup. And the emotional is the football of Haaland and KDB and Jack Grealish, and above all, of Pep Guardiola. So at the final whistle, it's that high that connects us, that we paid witness to together, that is now embedded in the memories of all of us watching around the world, the entire football fan base across the globe who shared this afternoon. Even though it needs to be viewed and requires viewing through that double lens of the footballing and the geopolitical. That Premier League case, the 115 charges, they are still to come. But tonight, City will celebrate. We know the rhythms well now. The TikToks are inside the locker room. Oh, the players dancing in their undies. Jack Grealish defending his Gucci bag. And the party of parties, that will all be seen all over the world. Jack Grealish, no doubt, going to wake up in the morning with the Champions League in his bed. There's that shot. Slide away and give it all you've got. My today fell in from the top. I dream of you, Champions League, and all the things you say. I wonder where you are now. And the reality is, think about this, the Champions League final next season in England. What odds would you put against City being in it? One final toast. Oh, a shot of Jägermeister, which I raised to Leeds United. You know, there's the City, the great club, soaring, another great club. Leeds United in a moment of existential doubt. Yesterday, news broke that their chair, Adriano Radrizzani, has agreed to a $240 million deal to sell his stake in a relegated club to co-owners. 49ers Enterprises, part of the San Francisco 49ers ownership group. They previously owned just 44% of Leeds, and they bought it at a steep discount from the original agreement, which was worth over $500 million, but that was dependent on their top flight survival. Leeds now in the Championship, a new day dawns. What they've got now is uber smart, strategic owners. And a group, actually, which includes two friends of the show. I've got to mention this. The great Larry Nance Jr. and Indiana Pacers' TJ McConnell, that mighty Yinzer. They both joined the Leeds United ownership group. I'm so thrilled for both of them. I know just how much they are blindly passionate and mad about the sport of football. And I just love watching people who are passionate about something, talk about something, put those words into action. So to better days ahead for everyone at that incredible, proud, historic, passionate club, Leeds United. May you rise again and soon to better days ahead for all. Oh, I needed that. We are back on Monday with a special bonus edition of European Nights with my mate Rory Smith, who is in Istanbul tonight. To get his read on this game, on this experience. I cannot wait for that. And then we'll turn the page. We'll get ready for the CONCACAF Nations League. We've got a series of US men's national team interviews coming up that you will not want to miss. And we are doing it live after Thursday's US men's national team Mexico semi-final, which is on my wife's birthday, June the 15th. Thank you, US Soccer, for scheduling that and kind of getting me into trouble. Oh, Men in Blazers after dark. Look at our social for the link to get involved on AMP. Until then, America, it's Rog. Big love, courage. Beautiful viewers, we really hope you enjoyed today's episode. UGFOP is really the reason why we do what we do. For more suboptimal content like this, remember, subscribe, click the bell to be notified about all future videos. Big love from me, courage. Subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage.